And a good Tuesday morning, everyone. Springfield's Talk 1041. My name is Nick Reed. We are streaming live, KSGF.com. We are also on YouTube. You can watch us there, current, live, past episodes. That is sponsored by Springfield Wraps, who also designed the KSGF studio. I noticed when I came in this morning, there were a number of text messages. They all, like within a 10-minute window, about app issues, that there was a lot of buffering going on. If any of you are still experiencing that, if you could text the text line, and then also what sort of phone you have. Is that the only information that you think would be relevant for us to pass along to
If you've done
whomever?
like an update recently on your phone, that way I can pass it over to the app developer because that's one thing that they always ask.
Yeah, they always want to know, what phones is this happening on, or that, just like Sarah just indicated. So whenever you do get those sorts of issues popping up on your phone, if you can also pass along that information, because sometimes that can help. But if that is an issue that you're having this morning, just go ahead and text us and let us know that information, and then that's what we'll pass along and hopefully be able to remedy. Sometimes it's just the sort of thing, how it is with IT people. Like, well, we're gonna reset it, we'll reboot it, and then sometimes that just fixes the problem. But other times there's much more involved. Yesterday, number of different pretty significant law and order events taking place. The arrest of the alleged killer of the health insurance CEO. Also, the not guilty verdict, Daniel Perry, and the subsequent call essentially for black people to commit acts of violence, specifically against white people subsequent to that. It's Black Lives Matter, which has over the last several years really been exposed as one of the single largest, most lucrative scams out there. I mean, just any other organization that would take money for the stated purposes of Black Lives Matter and then instead utilize it like they have, whether it's for mansions or fancy cars, vacations, a lot of it just disappearing, those people would go to prison. But Black Lives Matter has this special little carve out of privilege in which they can essentially steal people's money, use it to line their own pockets, and not be touched. Not only that, but then go out into the streets and call for violence whenever there is some sort of outcome that they don't support. Christopher Wray, the acting director of the FBI, according to reports, is going to step down rather than be fired by Donald Trump. This is in the aftermath, if you will, of Trump, the interview in which he was asked if he was going to fire the director, and he noted, well, look, I got a guy that I picked to replace him. So obviously, if that confirmation occurs, then Christopher Wray is going to go away. But what isn't getting noted is there was also a real scathing letter that was released by Senator Chuck Grassley, just railing on Wray and the failures of the FBI and the corruption at the FBI. And what is somewhat humorous is there really is no quarter in which he can hide because of Joe Biden, as ridiculous as it is, in his pardon of Hunter Biden, portraying his reasons for doing so because of the politicization of the FBI against poor Hunter. Now, this is the FBI. This is the thanks they get for arguably helping get Biden over the finish line in 2016, or 2020 rather, because they allowed the disinformation campaign to be spread that laptop didn't really exist. It was Russian disinformation all the time. They knew it existed because they had it in their possession. That, along with a number of the other investigations and there were numerous whistleblowers within the FBI noting that the FBI had been squashing many of these investigations against the Bidens. And so the FBI the thanks they get for the level of corruption to help usher in Joe Biden as president of the United States is Joe Biden coming out and claiming that they're corrupt. That's why I had to pardon my own son to protect him from the politicized nature of law in our country today, which, like I said, is, of course, absurdly laughable. But nonetheless, this is the circus that has been delivered to us over the last several years. Matt Gaetz, have you heard where he's popping up?
Nuh-uh.
Supposedly, former GOP Representative Matt Gaetz joining OAN as a news anchor. One America News Network, OANN, released promotional images for the Matt Gaetz Show with photos of Gaetz. OANN's website notes that the show is coming soon. And I don't know why this is listed. This is the news story headline report. Former GOP rep Matt Gaetz joining OANN as news anchor. I think this is more than just some sort of report. It's One American News Network that's saying, hey, the Matt Gaetz Show is coming. Here's his promotional photo coming soon. He's going to be joining us. Kristen Holmes, a national correspondent with CNN, reported that a source familiar told CNN Gaetz was expected to join OANN as an anchor. Again, I mean, it's on their website. They've themselves released promotional images on this. Gaetz reportedly expected to announce that he will be joining in November. Of course, he resigned from Congress and so forth because of the whole to-do. So this apparently is, according to One American News Network, where Matt Gaetz will have his own show coming soon. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 42. Tonight mostly cloudy with a low around 27. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 38. And on Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 52.
'Tis the season. Holiday events. Oh, I see what we do. We've got the Christmas bumper music in and
Yes,
rolling.
make sure
All right.
that I put the stop set on that. Well, it looks
I
like
guess
I
we're gonna
did.
find out. Yeah, you did get the command in there.
How
Good
about
job.
that?
Excellent job. Christmas parades, light displays, places to see Santa over at KSGF.com. You can get a full listing. That thanks to Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. FBI Director Christopher Wray plans to resign on or before Inauguration Day, according to recent reports. The move, widely seen as preemptive, reflects growing pressure from Republican lawmakers led by Senator Charles Grassley, and signals yet another shift in leadership for an agency that's been at the center of political and institutional controversies over the past several years. While Wray's resignation isn't entirely unexpected, raises important questions about the future of the FBI that challenges it faces the public's trust in one of the nation's most powerful institutions. This moment offers an opportunity to reflect on Wray's tenure, the criticisms that have mounted against him, and a new era of leadership under Donald Trump's administration and what exactly it could mean. Now, the Federalist posted before this announcement a piece regarding Chuck Grassley's release of a letter describing Wray's Orwellian conduct at the FBI. In the scathing letter, he rebuked the corrupt director and laid out a laundry list of reasons why he's lost confidence in his leadership and that of his deputy director, Paul Abate. Chuck Grassley, for those that don't know, is a relatively mild-mannered individual, so whenever a letter of this type comes out from someone like him, his office, it oftentimes has a little more weight to it amongst the establishment than if, some lunatic like Donald Trump or Matt Gaetz or Jim Jordan release such a letter. Grassley, the ranking member of the Senate Budget Committee, wrote in the letter sent to Wray yesterday, "For the good of the country, it's time for you and your deputy to move on to the next chapter in your lives." Some of Wray's sharpest critics arguing that his next chapter should be a prison sentence for weaponizing America's top law enforcement agency against political enemies and destroying whatever remained of America's faith that no one is above the law. Trump, of course, nominating Kash Patel to replace Wray as FBI director. The president-elect appearing Sunday morning on Meet the Press, saying that Wray's agency invaded his home amid one of many abuse investigations into the left's hated political enemy. Quote, "I'm suing the country over it. He invaded Mar-a-Lago. I'm very unhappy with the things he's done." Grassley, for his part, blasted Wray's refusal to release reams of records sought by congressional committees. Among the director's many failures over his 7-year tenure at the FBI's helm, quote, "I've spent my career fighting for transparency, and I always called out those in government who have fought against it. For the public record, I must do so once again. I therefore must express my vote of no confidence in your continued leadership at the FBI." In his scathing 11-page letter, the senator noted how he presided over Wray's nomination hearing as chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Wray was confirmed to be just the 8th FBI director upon the nomination of President Trump, and Grassley said he hoped that Wray would, quote, "bring needed change to the FBI after the politicization and scandal presided over by his predecessor, Director James Comey." Grassley reminded Wray of what he told him at the time, that the FBI director's 10-year term is a ceiling, not a floor, and that he expected Wray would comply with congressional oversight requests and protect whistleblowers. Quote, "As we stand at the threshold of a new Congress and a new administration with 7 years of water under the bridge, you have failed in these fundamental duties as director. These failures are serious enough, and their pattern widespread enough to have shattered my confidence in your leadership and the confidence and hopes many others in Congress placed in you," he added. While the FBI pushed a psyop that the Hunter Biden laptop story that broke before the 2020 election was Russian disinformation, Grassley noted the FBI's failure to investigate bribery allegations against former Vice President Joe Biden while strictly scrutinizing former President Trump. Grassley wrote, "You've repeatedly claimed you would ensure the FBI does justice free and fair, favor, or partisan influence or free rather, of fear, favor, and partisan influence. The FBI on your watch, however, had possession of incriminating information against President Biden for 3 years, until I exposed the existence of the record outlining those allegations, but did nothing to investigate it. He noted the oversight work that he and colleague Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin did in exposing the phony Steele dossier, and the FBI's role in peddling the false narrative that the Kremlin colluded with the Trump campaign. Grassley calling it some of the most egregious Orwellian conduct he's witnessed in nearly half a century in Congress. Grassley went into details in his 11-page letter about the FBI's disparate system of law enforcement accountability on Ray's watch and lapses that have put Americans and the nation at risk. Senator addressing concerns whistleblower disclosure of allegations of hundreds of FBI employees had retired or resigned to avoid accountability in a sexual misconduct scandal. He noted the FBI's failure to properly vet Afghanistan refugees prior to being located in the United States. More than 50 of those evacuees are believed to present, quote, potentially significant security concerns. Ray's response to Grassley at a Judiciary Committee oversight hearing, quote, left the impression the director hadn't even looked into the matter, and that his agency clearly couldn't account for the security risks. The senator wrote, quote, you did not live up to your word. Promises made, promises broken has become a recurrent theme under your leadership, Grassley scolded. You know, these institutions have worked and those leading them have worked very hard at earning the reputation that they so deserve. The fact that this was allowed to have gone on as long as it did, the tip of the iceberg in which Grassley describes in these different instances, that allowed this guy still for 7 years, despite all of those things, to be in charge of the FBI. And the only reason that he is going to be exiting before his 10-year tenure is up is because Donald Trump, getting elected by the American people, is going to put a replacement in there. The fact that he presided over an institution that actively engaged in as was listed in that piece in the Federalist, is PSYOP in order to alter the outcome of the election. We were, years. We were told by the Democrats, we were told by the deep state, we were told by the media that Vladimir Putin is defined as evil because, among other reasons, he tried to dishonestly alter the outcome of our election. Yet it's the FBI that had a hand in that, along with CIA and other deep state individuals, and the media, and social media platforms that were taking instruction from the FBI. When you look at all of the fear-mongering that was crafted around Russia interfering in our elections, all of the egregious sins that we were told made Putin nefarious are the sins committed by these different institutions and people within the institutions right here in the United States. You know, Trump would get a lot of flack for referencing, the enemy within. But when you define from within outsiders as the enemy for, among other reasons, because what makes them an enemy is the fact that they have tried to tinker with and alter the outcome of elections by interfering with misinformation or disinformation. But when it turns out that internally you are the one who's doing that, how can you then claim you are not an enemy of the United States? When you have defined others as being an enemy by accusing them of doing what it is that you have done. When you say this particular action makes somebody a danger and an enemy to this country, and it turns out you're the one that's actually doing that, what does that make you? By your own definition, not by anyone else's. And the fact that Ray has been able to occupy this position all of this time, and if I think we can all agree that in all likelihood, if Kamala Harris had been elected, he would have served out the 10 years. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. KSGF.com, your chance to win before you can buy tickets to see Legendary Styx with special guest Kevin Cornyn of REO Speedwagon live Thunder Ridge Nature Arena. This will be in June of 2025, June 7. We have your chance to win the tickets before they go on sale this Friday at 10 a.m. So you can go to ksgf.com in order to get registered for that. Don't forget, Area Macadoodles and Price Cutters Bradford Light, one of the offerings from Kansas Territory Brewing, available to you, brought to you by your friends at Show Me Beverage, a beer that speaks to the dedication of the hands that build the heartland out of Washington, Kansas, tailored for the hardworking men and women who love the reliable, easy drinking experience of 3.8%. Bradford Light. They have other offerings as well. In fact, you can go to KansasTerritoryBrewingCo.com, learn about the locally owned crafted offerings that they do have. The highlighted currently is Bradford Light, more of the I think one might argue it's got a wider appeal than some of the more specific tastes, and it's why it's a great go-to to have in your fridge at all times. Bradford Light and Area Macadoodles and Price Cutters.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 42. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 27. For your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 38. And on Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 52.
Time magazine gets a lot of play in the media because they annually have their person or sometimes people or concept of the year. And this isn't necessarily, it's not like the most popular person. It's a person that just they believe has had the most significant impact over the year. Taylor Swift has donned the cover in the past. Zelensky of Ukraine, Elon Musk back in 2021 before the left decided that they hated him. Obama, of course, in 2008 and 2012. So there's a list of the 10 people they're currently considering. Kamala Harris is on it. Are you serious? I mean, come on. In what way? Now, Trump also is one of the individuals that's being considered. And I could see Time Magazine putting him on the cover as the person of the year just because of not only because of the electoral win and winning the most votes, but given everything that he has been through, everything he's been put through. I mean, 4 years, well, they didn't really amp it up until he was actually running for re-election, but this multi-pronged attempt to use the judicial system in order to prevent him from getting reelected, whether that is the imprisonment itself, an attempt to do that, or simply drain him of his finances, keep him off the campaign trail. You remember back to that just onslaught where it seemed as if that this is impossible. You know, there were discussions about how in these jurisdictions, under normal circumstances, you would have, you know, one jurisdiction note, okay, well, clearly this case is underway here, and so the defendant is going to be unable to juggle two different cases at a time. We will default to that jurisdiction because of whatever reason, and then once that case is wrapped up, then we'll move forward with ours. But they were all, you know, essentially coordinating, not necessarily with one another, though there's an attempt to determine whether or not that was the case, but coordinating with the campaign election calendar. And so you had this impossible situation set up where I know that a lot of Trump supporters had to feel like there's no way he can possibly overcome this. I mean, this is an avalanche of attack. And the discussions that you would hear, and I'm not even talking about the left that salivated over these sorts of attacks, but even Trump supporting individuals saying this is going to be a miracle if he is able to come out of this. It is almost inconceivable that they are not going to get him in one capacity or another. Now, arguably, of course, they did. You know, there were a couple of the cases that played out, the records case being one of them, in which he still has yet to be sentenced, but it didn't stop. It's almost irrelevant at this point. And you just look at that alone. And he just pushed through that, punched through that. That is just such a remarkably historic thing for an individual to overcome. I think that even in the biased world of the media, there's got to be some part of the folks at Time Magazine that recognize, Donald Trump arguably should be on the cover. So Kamala Harris, though, is and what a joke. Some of the other names: Kate Middleton, Elon Musk, Yulia Navalny. She is the economist and the wife of Alexei Navalny, who was the political opposition to Putin, so he had him put in prison and then he would die there. Netanyahu is on the list. Jerome Powell, who's been the chairman of the Reserve since 2018. Joe Rogan. Claudia Sheinbaum, she is the president of Mexico. Mark Zuckerberg, of course, Meta/Facebook, is on that list as well. Now, it's going to sound like a cliche, but if I'm Time Magazine, I think that I would at least consider the American voter. Because while I noted what Donald Trump has gone, and I didn't even mention the assassination attempts, but that the American people have sent such a resounding and historic message about how they are so sick and tired of the way that the establishment does stuff. And that's not just against Democrats. That's against the Republican establishment as well. You know, so many of the people who support Donald Trump have as much of a distaste for the Republican Party as they do the Democrat Party. And I don't think in many of our lifetimes there's ever been such a anti-establishment vote take place. And 2016 was to some degree clearly that. But this time around, it was on steroids versus what happened before, because the 2016 vote was one in which there was still a degree of unknown. Because let's be honest, Trump could have gotten in there and been full-blown establishment. We didn't know for sure. Now, some people may argue, oh, I knew Donald Trump would not be establishment. But this was one of the grave concerns that a lot of people had, that, you know, yeah, he talks a good game and everything, but, you know, he's always hobnob with all these elites. He shows up at the weddings. He gives donations to all of these elected officials, Republicans and Democrats alike. I mean, he is the personification of the establishment, while he hasn't necessarily held any office before. I mean, he's writing checks to these people. He meets with these people. He knows these people. So there was a bit of a gamble there that he could have very easily gotten in there and been just as establishment as everyone else. But no one could wonder that this last election. It was very, very clear that he was not an establishment person, and he was not someone interested in being the establishment. And so voting for Donald Trump this time around, it just held a different message than I believe it did in 2016, where 2016 for a lot of Americans was about, yeah, we don't know for sure what this guy's going to be like as president, but we know we haven't liked what we've seen before. So we're going to kind of go into some uncharted territory here. But this time around, it was, okay, yeah, we know who he is, and we want more of that, including a lot of people who had never even voted before, who didn't vote for him the first time. And so while Time Magazine mulls over who their person of the year is going to be, which really the most impacting purpose it has is it gets discussion, it gets headlines, it gets talked about, while I think Donald Trump certainly, or, you know, Joe Rogan, I do believe also, could arguably be on that list, because he really made undeniable the impact of podcasting and the increasing irrelevancy of traditional media. And I don't know that, I don't even think it's anything deliberate. I think it's just Joe Rogan is Joe Rogan, and he is a guy like so many other podcasters that are just interested as actual normal human beings without a political agenda in delivering information to people that they may not otherwise know. And that's what the media used to be, but it's not that any longer. Largely, they're political activists. So there's this vacuum there, and people do want that. They desire that. And the Joe Rogans of the world fill that void. And so it not so much Joe Rogan himself, but what he represents and what it is that he has brought into focus in this country regarding people's relationship with traditional media versus relationship with podcasting, and what the left still doesn't understand. While they see it as a red flag, if you're somebody that is a fan of Joe Rogan, what average people see is this is a guy that is just doing what the media used to do, with no agenda whatsoever, politically speaking, just asking questions from an intellectually curious place, and then providing that information on his platform to people that are interested in learning about it. And that's where that popularity is. It says, I think, as much or not, if not more, about the American people than it does Joe Rogan, which I suppose goes back to the American people. Though the American people, the American voter, are not on the list of Times Person or People of the Year, I think that the close proximity of relationship to the voter, to me, would mean either Donald Trump or Joe Rogan, though Elon Musk certainly does warrant at least an honorable mention in there. But you never know. It could be Kamala. I mean, she's certainly one of their top 10 for reasons only they can know. This past Friday, we had Holiday Helpers, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Cooling sponsored it, and we had some. This was an expansion from what we've done in the past, which was focused specifically on different gift ideas. And it was an idea that we had a few years ago because you get around the holidays, and sometimes there are those people you just kind of like, oh, you got to buy for them, but you just don't know what to get them. Particularly if you're a guy, you're not very good at giving ideas oftentimes as to what you want as a gift, and it can be frustrating. So we would spend the first Friday of the month hitting different local businesses that focus specifically on gifts. But in our discussions this past year, we realized that there's so many other I don't know, stressful, but things that occupy one's mind and time during the holidays that could also be addressed. Like you have family coming in to visit. How do you feed all of them? What do you do with them if they're
Yeah,
around it? Yeah,
entertainment.
entertainment. It's such a huge one that there are news stories about every. In fact, I just saw I forget which one of the local news sites, and it was a story about. It was from one of the TV stations, but on their site, a story about what's the deadline to ship packages. And so these are areas that so often occupy one's mind as you're trying to navigate through the holidays. And so we expanded it into that. And we did have, again, a mixture of some of our past partners with new partners. And one of the continuing partners is Corwin. Corwin Automotive, Springfield and Republic, and they always provide us transportation. And so if you haven't seen the video, I bring this up because Sarah's like, this would be a good time to mention how you jacked up the Christmas tree over there at Corwin. If you haven't, so what we do, if you're not familiar with this, we did it this past Friday, is we visit all these different partners and we go on air, and then we also do a Facebook Live. Around that same period of time. So that way you can get some visuals, and there are less time constraints when you're doing a Facebook Live as opposed to breaking in place of commercials during syndicated programming. And the totally awesome people over at Corwin, they were like, they always love to, put me in a truck, which I love. And they had this, it was on display at that newest location over there in Kearney, which is, if you've not been there, it's really it's an experience, not your traditional place to go buy a vehicle. And so they had on display this really nice big truck, and they also have in there this really nice Christmas tree. I mean, I'd say 20 foot.
It is a massive Christmas
tree. Yeah, it's
tree.
very, very, very tall. It's extremely tall, not wide as much as tall. I think probably 20 feet at least, because they're very high ceilings. And so the contact over there at Corwin was excited about the idea of filming the Facebook Live with me seeing the vehicle, getting in the vehicle, and then driving the vehicle out. And in the process of doing so, I almost took out the Christmas tree completely. I crunched it. I rolled it. And
you ruined the presents underneath it.
I didn't know about that part.
Yeah, you did.
So there were
ran over the presents.
I did not realize that until just recently that I ran over the presents. All of this is on Facebook Live. I have my microphone on. In Sarah's, filming from the outside.
I was panicked because I couldn't hear what you were saying. I'm like, oh, please don't say anything bad.
Yeah, she was worried that I was going to be saying all sorts of PG-13 or rated R things, which I did not.
I know.
I knew I had the microphone on.
I was proud of you, but I did go back and listen to the audio, which is my favorite part of the entire thing.
And what I liked about the audio, if you haven't watched it, you can go see it on our Facebook page. I thought that the Corwin guy was telling me keep going. But when I went back and heard on Facebook Live, because he was also mic'd up, he was telling me to put it in reverse or to back up. And so I think anyway, wasn't he say back up? So here he's telling me to back up. I can hear the tree. It's an artificial tree. So it's plastic and metal. I can hear it crunching as it's rolling alongside the truck. And all I'm thinking about is I am scraping up the side of this truck. I'm just absolutely destroying it. And we managed to, it didn't do any damage to the truck. Evidently, I ran over whatever presents were under the tree, destroyed some of those. And then the Christmas tree, I noticed that they were really trying to finagle it and get it back into a sturdy position for quite some time afterwards. So it's a fun video to watch if you haven't seen it. Apparently also, another little added bonus is one of our really good friends is someone who teaches sign language, and she was with a number of I guess they were students at an event and said, oh, hey, let's watch this. And we're watching all of it play out prior to taking, the Christmas tree destruction part of it. And you know how whenever you speak, you have certain motions with your hands that you don't even think about. Well, evidently, the consistent motion of my hands was signing the word vagina over and over and over again. And so while the hearing community got the enjoyment of watching me almost take out that 20-foot Christmas tree with a brand new vehicle from Corwin, the non-hearing community got to watch me just sign the word vagina over and over and over again. So that's how it kicked off
I
last
mean, just
Friday.
a banner day for
It
you,
was a
Nick.
real banner day. It actually was such a great time.
It was so fun.
Rapid Shipping Republic on Highway 60 next to Domino's. They're just such incredible people. I cannot recommend enough any sort of package shipping that you're going to do,
Oh, look at that,
whether
right
it's
there.
whether it's a regular business. Oh yeah, regular, you know, daily or just once every so often. Big Shots Golf, great place to take to do with your family or your office or your friend or just by yourself, especially if you are not a golfer. It is a golfing for people who are not golfers. They've got great food and they've got a full bar in there as well. Of course, we mentioned Corwin, Ming Auto Beauty Center just for him, Aviary Cafe, which now they have a private room for lunch, but they focus on lunch for the public, so you can utilize the entire facility for your own private event in the evening, and they do catering. They'll bring it to you as well. And I think that is that. Oh, High V.
Yeah, I was gonna
High
say.
V with their catering, and they have dietitians at their two locations. Maddie is generally at the Sunshine location, and then Audrey is at the Battlefield location, and they're both fantastic. They've got little offices there, so if you're just wanting to learn how to eat healthier or you have a specific diet, that's what they're there for. So just ask for the dietitian, and they'll get you set up. And their catering's fantastic. So I want to thank all of those people that were part of it this year, and just hope that next year doesn't kick off in such a disastrous way, potentially. Oh, all right, everyone. I'm going to give you a free gift right now. If you need some advice or help navigating through selling your home or buying a new home, or you know someone who does, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, that knowledge is your gift. She does a tremendous job. I've utilized her in what would be a limited capacity versus some people like Sarah who spent 2 years looking for that first home. And while I think it's fair to say you were ready to give up, Emily was not.
That's
And it
right.
was your future home.
I
And
know.
Emily's like, and I remember the frustration that not even frustration, but almost sort of, I just give up. Um,
I kept getting
Approach that you
outbid.
yeah, and I remember Emily, and when we'd be out there at Scramblers, she'd be like, "Don't worry, it's going to happen." Just the words of encouragement, and she was not phased at all.
Nope, she wasn't.
And it did not phase her in the least. The 2 years that she had spent working on it. But that's what you get with her. She's a fantastic person. She's going to take tremendous care of you. So even if it's not for you, but maybe someone else that you know that needs somebody to help navigate through the buying or selling of a home, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. We've got news coming up in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. regarding Time Magazine's upcoming person or persons of the year. This is always a end of the year news discussion. While Kamala Harris is evidently one of the 10 they're mulling over, so are the likes of Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, and Donald Trump. Someone said that they should nominate the Musketeers. That would be Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, and Donald Trump. Not a bad idea. Another saying, if Trump wins, how long before Joy Reid says, well, Hitler won Times Man of the Year, too. Well, again, I think Hitler was at one point Times Man of the Year because of the impact that he had on, Putin could be on there. I mean, honestly, it isn't about praising the individual. It's just about someone that has made a tremendous difference. Joe Biden could be on there. Many Democrats arguing that if he had not run for re-election, then Donald Trump would not be the president today. Of course, they were the ones rigging the system to make it easier for him to win, so it's not exactly well, they turn on each other. They were his biggest pushers. In that entire scenario, recognizing that Joe Biden is the one who is suffering from senility, arguably he is the last person equipped to make that decision. Yet they all put it on him. How long do we talk about the fact that they were involved in elder abuse? That this guy does not know what he's doing. He is clueless half the time. And even the discussions from a humanitarian standpoint, the sympathy because, unless you're in that situation, I don't think you can really truly imagine what it's like. But would have to be stress. And if you realize as you're going out to speak, the pressure that's on you, knowing that you may forget things, that has got to be embarrassing, I would think. And they kept putting him out there and moving the election calendar around in order to prevent any challengers. Let's not forget RFK Jr. The reason that he began to run as an independent and then would then eventually support Donald Trump is because the Democrats rigged the system so he couldn't run against Joe Biden. Kept having him thrown off ballots, refused to do debates. All in an effort to make sure that Joe Biden crossed that finish line. They all knew. Oh, but since it didn't work out for him, well, he should have. Oh, really, should he have? The one guy, arguably, intellectually, who was the least capable of making that decision. What a party of compassionate people. Proposition A, this past election, was one of the many different propositions and issues on the ballot that passed, and this was one that did a number of different things, including raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2016. It also mandated paid sick leave. Now, these are two separate things, which is why, among other reasons, there are a number of organizations that are seeking to overturn that decision. And as usual, you have some people that are crying democracy, 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 because the people have decided. And as usual, many of these people had no problem with the state legislature passing taxes at the pump after the people democratically decided against it. Here we go once again with the hypocrisy of so many of these different organizations that whenever the people vote in a manner that they disagree and there is an attempt to override it, they're fully supportive of it. But when the people vote for something that they like and there's an attempt to override it, all of a sudden, well, this is anti-democratic. This is the worst thing ever. Can we get a little honesty here? Just some consistency. If you believe that when there is a vote and the people vote either for or against something, that by default there should never, ever be any attempt to change it. Can you just stick with that? Instead of choosing to be outraged when it conveniences you. This is one of those instances in which the League of Women Voters is exposing itself as being ultra political, as they are still allowed to parade around as completely nonpartisan. They're one of the organizations that are pitching it. And by the way, I'm not saying that the organizations, I'm going to read to you the organizations that are behind this. This isn't to claim one side is virtuous while the other isn't. There's just so much of the just this outrage. And I think a lot of other people are too. The over the top rhetoric in which there's everything is 0 to 60. Everything is complete outrage. There's no sort of measured response. There's no non-hysterical reaction to somebody making a political move with which they disagree. Have a look at the weather here in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
You were right. Adolf Hitler was Time
Yeah.
Magazine's Man of the Year
Yeah, I
in
thought he was.
1938.
Thought he was. Well, then if Trump is Man of the Year, then Hitler will be on there twice.
There you
I guess.
go.
As someone had questioned on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, why is it of the top 10 people that apparently Time Magazine is considering for their cover person of the year, why is the president of Mexico but not Netanyahu? Netanyahu is listed as one of the 10 that are on there as well.
That's right. All right, the first alert forecast from Color 10, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 42. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 27. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 38. And on Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 52.
Several business groups are asking the Missouri Supreme Court to overturn the voter-passed Proposition A, which will raise the state's minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2026 and mandate paid sick leave, two separate things, obviously. They contend that Prop A violates the requirement that ballot initiatives contain only one subject and argue that minimum wage and sick leave are two different subjects. Well, they are different subjects. Do you know, this is a very easy test. Is it possible to vote yes on one and no on the other? If the answer is yes, then they are different subjects. Now, this is something that we've become very accustomed to in Missouri, in which you are not supposed to have multiple issues in a single vote, because you may support one and not the other. But we do it all the time anyway. And the way that this happens is they say, well, both of them have to do with work. Well, if you take that approach, you can make any number of different subject matters be about one thing. Well, they're all in the state of Missouri. Well, they all are nouns. They're all verbs. I mean, you can always find a commonality to claim that they're all the same subject matter. But the test is really very easy. Is it possible for the answer to have more than one answer? And the answer for this particular situation is yes. You could be an individual who says, you know what, I do support dictating to businesses that they have to pay people at least $15 an hour, but I'm not for the paid sick leave thing. Now, most people are probably going to fall the same for each. Most people who support forcing businesses to arbitrarily raise their minimum wage to $15 an hour will also support forcing them to arbitrarily have a certain number of paid sick days, and then vice versa. Most people who think that this is a free country and that we shouldn't have a form of fascism in which businesses are controlled through government force when it comes to how much you pay people, how much paid sick leave, and so they're going to say no to both of those. But you may have some people who have a variation. The whole point of requiring only one subject per vote is so that you aren't forced to say yes to everything or no to everything. For this particular amendment, if you happen to be someone who say, yes, I support mandated paid sick leave, but I think the minimum wage thing is going to be a position to the way you wanted in order to vote in support of the way you wanted. This is actually pretty simple when you just boil it down, which is why it's so very frustrating. The measure passed last month, nearly 58% of the vote. The groups that are asking the Missouri Supreme Court to overturn the proposition include Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Associated Industries of Missouri, the Missouri Grocers Association, the Missouri Restaurant Association, the Missouri Forest Products Association, and the National Federation of Independent Business. The petition states, while Proposition A is bad policy and will have extreme and detrimental effects on Missouri's businesses, that is not the basis for this action. Instead, the election irregularities and the constitutional violations are so significant that the election results must be overturned and Proposition A must be declared invalid. Supporters of Proposition A have said Missouri's current minimum wage of $12.40 an hour is too low to make a living, even though it rises every year along with the Consumer Price Index. And let's be honest, when it comes to people who advocate for raising the minimum wage, they're never like, yep, this is good now, we're fine. I mean, it is just a benchmark in which they already begin from that point figuring out, okay, what's going to be the next increase. Marilyn McLeod, president of League of Women Voters of Missouri, which insultingly we're told is nonpartisan, said this anti-democratic move is reprehensible. Okay, calm it down a little bit. This is where it's like, just take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. Missouri voters have spoken, and this matter should be settled. These special interest groups could have raised their legal concerns at any point in the process before the measure appeared on the ballot. Now, did the president of the League of Women Voters stand up whenever the state legislature was ignoring the democratic process of asking people whether or not to raise taxes at the pump and decided to just go ahead and do it? Were they outraged? Did they reference that as being an anti-democratic move that's reprehensible? I don't know. Maybe they did. But what I find here is that the selective outrage from these organizations that will weigh in on one subject matter, even though they're completely not, hey, no, we have nothing to do. This is the joke of the Women League of Voters. They portray themselves as, hey, all we're about is making sure people have information. We don't have a dog in any of these fights whatsoever. Oh, really? Because if I had to guess, your reference to this as being reprehensible sort of kind of seems like maybe you're not quite bipartisan or nonpartisan, rather, on this particular issue. And this labeling of any time that there is a completely legal mechanism within our system as being anti-democratic and reprehensible because you are being challenged. I mean, it gets old and it gets exhausting. I'd be perfectly fine with a reasonable, non-hysterical argument that, hey, listen, we disagree with this. The people have spoken, and we think it's good for businesses, and it's good for the workers, so we hope that the Supreme Court does not find in their favor. That's a reasonable response. This, anti-democratic move is it's reprehensible. Okay, calm down. Now, if it is allowed to stand, Missouri's minimum wage will raise to $13.75 an hour on January 1st, then $15 an hour in 2026. With some exceptions, employers in Missouri will also be required to provide 1 hour of paid sick leave to employees for every 30 hours worked. And like I said, these are clearly two very, very separate things. Now, of course, they both have to do with employment. But if an individual can be asked the question and have two separate answers, then it should not be on a ballot together in one question. And this, like so many past propositions or amendments, fall under that category. The constitutionality of these things in Missouri have been rendered completely irrelevant because it is so clear that this issue of having only one issue, as opposed to making people vote yes on something that they may disagree with in order to vote yes on something that they agree with, it happens with such consistency in Missouri. I mean, it's just like, what is the point of even concerning ourselves in Missouri with the Constitution? And this is a state, of course, that is overwhelmingly run by Republicans, who love to default to, well, we'll just let the courts decide. Because when they run for office, that's what they say, right? I won't make the tough decisions. Oh, the Constitution, smonstitution. Ultimately, I'll just leave it up to the courts. A1 Custom Car Care, all of your car care needs coming up this Saturday, 10 a.m. A1 Custom Car Care, the show with Dustin Atwood and our very own Sarah Myers. What to keep in your vehicle this winter? Snacks,
Yes. No, that really is one of
trail
them.
mix. See, I know.
Yep.
That way, if you slide off into the forest and you are not found for days, you do not have to eat your fingers.
That is right.
You can instead
Trying to avoid that.
eat whatever snacks you have. And winter car care tips as well, repairs also. So that is some of the valuable information that you'll receive. One of the big pushes that has always been a priority for A1 Custom Car Care is education, because through education comes your ability to keep your vehicle in the best shape possible. And that means, just like the human body, so oftentimes, yes, catastrophic things happen that were avoidable, but there are those little things that you can do on a constant basis or a semi-constant basis that prevents the catastrophic things, or at least diminishes the likelihood that they will happen. Just like with your body, same with your vehicle, and that's why they're constantly doing what they can to make sure you are as informed and empowered as possible. When it comes to the Proposition A issue, and a number of different organizations that have filed a lawsuit, among other reasons, arguing accurately that it should not have been on the ballot the way it was, because it had two different issues. It had an issue of paid sick leave and an issue of minimum wage. And this is something that is not supposed to happen in the state of Missouri, but it does. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, I didn't even know the sick leave thing was a Proposition A. As a small business, the thing that is bad for me is the time it will take to keep track of this, watching each employee's time clock and calculating. What people don't realize is I have to pay someone else to work when someone else is gone, or close during that time, making it twice as expensive to operate. And whether you're a small business, medium business, large business, this is a reality. This is a cost. So you are paying double when somebody is on sick leave. If you do have to have, if whatever the job is, you've got to have somebody come in and replace that individual, and a lot of jobs are like that. It cannot go missing a person, so you have to pay double. Now, I know in the minds of many people, well, you just go to that big Scrooge McDuck vault of yours and open her up and get out some of them gold coins that you've been hoarding. That's not reality. There's a set amount of money that can be utilized in order to pay people. And so what ends up oftentimes happening is, if you figure that in, that's less money that you can give people who make above the entry-level wage. So you slowly subsidize people who have entry wage positions by not giving raises to people who have earned them. The money has to come from somewhere. Or you cut a job, or you cut back hours. All things that negatively impact the employee. But that's a lot more difficult to explain to people. It's the sort of thing that happens in every community, in every state, in which there is a significant increase when it comes to minimum wage. And then the local outlets come back, and then they interview the people who have lost their jobs, and they say, if we had known this. And the reason that they don't know it is because it doesn't get covered beforehand. And you have these organizations out there pretending as if all this is going to do is lift people out of poverty, because they're dishonest. And they're trying to buy influence, they're trying to buy votes, they're trying to buy significance as organizations. Or they just sometimes, frankly, don't know what they're talking about, because they've never done payroll. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Colorton, Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today it'll be mostly sunny with a high near 42. Tonight mostly cloudy with a low around 27. For your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 38. And on Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 52. Now the first day of winter is just right around the corner, and winter can be pretty brutal on your roof, especially right now. We are seeing major swings in temperatures, and that can actually cause shifting with your shingles, and that can lead to nail pops. And if nail pops are not addressed, that can actually allow for moisture to get underneath your shingles, and that can lead to deck rot and eventually leaks. So if you have an older roof and you just want to get a checkup on your roof before winter hits, I highly recommend that you give Josh over at the Pyramid Roofing Company team a call. Now, the Pyramid team, they do free roof inspections. They also offer discounts for our military and our first responders on new roof installs. And they also work through that insurance process without making you sign anything. So whether you need a whole new roof or just a simple roof repair, or if you're a business owner and you need commercial roofing repairs, the Pyramid Roofing Company, they will get you all taken care of. You can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
I've gotten a couple of different text messages coming in on this Proposition A thing that I wanted to share because it, to a degree, makes a point. And this is back in the news because there are a number of different organizations, Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Associated Industries in Missouri, Missouri Grocers Association, Missouri Restaurant Association, Missouri Forest Products Association, and the National Federation of Independent Businesses that are asking the Missouri Supreme Court to overturn the voter-passed Proposition A, which did two things: raises the state's minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2026 and mandates paid sick leave. With some exceptions, employees or employers in Missouri will also be required, in addition to the minimum wage issue, to separately provide 1 hour of paid sick leave to employees for every 30 hours worked. Now, I'm guessing the exceptions probably have something to do with the number of employees that you have. I don't remember off the top of my head. Some of the text now, these different groups here, they note that this is not good for business, but that's not why we are asking the Supreme Court to overturn this. We are asking the Supreme Court to overturn this because it is, or in the language asks two different questions in one question, which is not supposed to happen when it comes to a vote in the state of Missouri. This is unconstitutional. It has to be one issue. And there are clearly two issues here. And the proof of that are the number of text messages that I'm getting in that are talking specifically about one or the other, because there are two. I'm off. So part-time high school kids who work 30 hours a month will get PTO. Another noting, my construction company pays most holidays. The way that we'll probably have to compensate that is not paying for holidays. Missouri does not require you to pay them for that. And, you know, a couple of points to be made here. One, again, not what they're arguing before the Supreme Court, but the real-life implications of this is that money has to come from somewhere. Generally, people who support these sort of things have never done payroll. They do not understand what it takes to run a business, or they do, but they don't care because they have something to gain, generally political significance, by pushing for the artificial raising of entry-level wages or paid sick leave or paid time off. And this really is paid time off because, you know, if there is no difference unless you are still an employer that requires a doctor's note, which most businesses don't. This is paid vacation is what it is. Let's just be honest about it. The vast majority of individuals who utilize, or particularly if they are just not because they've earned it, other than the government utilizing its force on businesses in order to make it happen, you know, you're going to have a significant number of those people that just use it as paid time off, vacation time, paid vacation. This is something that used to compel individuals to work hard, work their way up, because that was a perk of working somewhere for a period of time or demonstrating your worth to a company, is that you got paid vacation and an increased paid. Well, now what you have is government just allowing people to vote how businesses should be run, and a lot of what has been utilized as incentive to reward the better employees is being taken away and just forced uh, by again government by way of the vote of the people in order to just make it happen arbitrarily. Now, those are just business implications. But the proof that despite what supporters of Proposition A want you to believe when they say, no, this isn't more than one subject matter, the fact that the text messages coming in from you, many of which are business owners yourself, are talking about one or the other because they are separate. Some of you are texting in specifically about the minimum wage component here, but most of you, it's the PTO aspect of this. And that is, again, why they're arguing that this should be thrown out. And it should. It should. I don't understand how these things even end up on the ballot. I know I don't have a fancy degree. And I often get told by people who are in Jeff City or Washington, D.C., as many of you may as well, you just don't understand how things work. And I guess I don't. Because it is not very difficult for me whatsoever to figure out every single time one of these ballot initiatives come up, anytime one of these votes come up, whether or not there is only one or there are multiple subject matters. Very simple. But apparently I'm the odd man out when it comes to this. The exceptions are not for the size of the business. It's for schools and government or political subdivisions. Well, of course it is. I couldn't recall. I was opposed to Proposition A simply because, let's be honest, it is a form of fascism. Fascism is when government steps in and tells businesses and business owners, you can own a business, but we're going to step in and tell you how you run it. We're going to tell you what products to provide. We're going to tell you how much you're going to pay people. We're going to tell you whether or not you have PTO. That's fascism. For all the talk about fascist, we do operate in fascist ways when it comes to dealing with businesses, and in Missouri, Proposition A fits that bill. What was it I wanted to read? There was one other text message, and it's to that point. I think I think the only business that doesn't get affected is government employees. I didn't realize the government had the right to tell private business how they treat their employees' benefits. If we voted the businesses must provide cars, would we have to provide cars for everybody working? Well, I guess as long as there were enough signatures gathered and it gets on the ballot, yeah. I mean, that's the principle under which we operate when it comes to businesses being run, and that element of fascism in the state of Missouri. We're not the only one, obviously, that the government allows itself to be used as a tool to tell businesses how it is that they're going to be run. But we hate fascism, don't we? Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. should mention we've got KSGF.com Christmas in the Ozarks. Whether it's Christmas parade, light displays, places to see Santa, you can head over to KSGF.com and find the Christmas in the Ozarks page. That is sponsored by the good folks at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. And you can also get yourself registered while you are there to win before you can buy tickets to see Legendary Sticks, special guest Kevin Cornyn of REO Speedwagon at Thunder Ridge Nature Arena. That is going to be Saturday, June 7th. Tickets go on sale 10 o'clock this Friday, but again, you can register to win those before you can buy them. And Santa's Angels, the latest update we have on that is that 2 of the trees have all the kids adopted out, though more may have. I've just received communication from Anchor Tactical Supply and the Greene County Freight location, and that those kids have all been adopted out. So that leaves A1 Custom Car Care in Republic on Highway 60 and Crown Power and Equipment and Pinnager Chevrolet in Republic. Now, they may also be out of kids. I don't know. I just have gotten confirmation from the other locations that, in fact, they have gotten all those kids adopted out. So that's definitely good news. So the other 3 are unknown. In all likelihood, I imagine at least one, if not all 3 of them, still have kids to be adopted. And we're going to talk a little more in depth coming up in the 8 o'clock hour about exactly what Santa's Angels is and the implications of it and what a difference it really does make to a lot of people. I know I'm friends with someone who years ago adopted one of the children, like actually literally legally adopted as a son, who is an adult now. And one of the things that he has been adamant about post being a child that was the recipient of Santa's Angels, that they participate in it because it just was so meaningful to him as a child. So it does make a difference, and that's something that I want to make sure that we as best as possible relay to you. And so we'll do that in the upcoming hour. So yesterday, one of the big news items was Daniel Penny set free by a jury of his peers. There was an earlier dismissal of second-degree manslaughter charges, and then when it came to the issue of what was a criminally negligent homicide, the jury found him not guilty. Immediately, a number of individuals, in the name of racial justice, began spewing some of the worst racism possible and essentially called on black people to commit acts of violence. Following the verdict, racial agitators erupting in anger. That included Jordan Neely's father, Jordan Neely is the deranged individual that was threatening to kill people and had hospitalized people in the past, was listed in the millions and millions of people in New York, the top 50 most deranged individuals that government had a watchful eye on because he needed to be locked up, but for whatever reason they didn't do it. So this is somebody that was a loose cannon running around. Everyone knew it. And in New York City, the people of New York and the visitors, the tourists to New York, are pretty much just told, well, good luck. And the people on that subway or in that subway car that day were told good luck, but for the fact that Daniel Penny stepped in order to save their lives. And in doing so, the individual, because of a combination of drugs and whatever else, ended up dying. Now, common sense people look at somebody like Daniel Penny as a hero, somebody that you would tell your children, particularly young boys, that is the sort of man you want to grow up to be, protecting people who are unable to protect themselves. Many of those individuals were people of color, incidentally. People of color that could very well have been killed if it were not for Daniel Penny. Yet people who claim to carry the banner of Black Lives Matter are upset because those black lives were saved. Jordan Neely's, whose father abandoned him as a child, and then at some point, I think he was 18 years old, Jordan Neely, he was this Michael Jackson impersonator, street performer. And at the age of 18 or 19, he ended up moving with his father. But then his father tried to shake him down for some of his earnings as a street performer, so he moved out. No real relationship with him. But now this guy, the so-called father, has popped up suing Daniel Penny for wrongful death. So in other words, this guy is once again trying to use his son in order to shake somebody down for money. So he spoke at the microphone. Also, Hawk Newsom, who founded BLM of Greater New York, went before the national media and said, among other things, the following.
Just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Right.
Now, what actually happened was Daniel Penny did stand up and act as, if you want to describe it as that, a vigilante in order to protect black people. Neely had been arrested 42 times over the last decade. His most recent arrest in November for assaulting a 67-year-old woman. He broke her face. Orbital socket, crushed it, because he's a psychopath. He also pleaded guilty to attempted kidnapping in 2015 for dragging a 7-year-old girl down a street. And this is who Black Lives Matter defends. There is this, and the verdict was a just one. However, I do not believe that this is an entire scenario of justice being served, because Daniel Penny should have never been forced to go through what he went through. The amount of money that he has had to spend defending himself. Now he's facing a lawsuit from a so-called father who had nothing to do with his son's life until it came time that he thought he could cash in on him. There is an open call, essentially, to kill the guy by some of these activists. None of that is a sign of justice. And while the eventual outcome was should have been the clear outcome, there should have never even been a trial. Instead, Penny should be held up as an individual that, though the outcome was not what anyone necessarily would have wanted, but the sort of individual that New Yorkers should aspire to be. Individuals that will stand up, risk their own lives to protect those even if they don't look like them. Because of all of the people involved in this scenario, the person who seemingly cared the least about skin color was Daniel Penny. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Streaming live, ksgf.com. Also on YouTube. You can watch us live or past episodes. That thanks to Springfield Wraps, designer of the KSGF studio. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed. Welcome to the show. Springfield housing the largest woodworking, metalworking showroom in the world with over 35,000 square feet of machines on display, 600 of them. Excuse me, got choked up just talking about it. Grizzly Industrial. You may have seen it, you may have passed by it, didn't realize it is open to the public. But in fact, it is open to the public. Hundreds of thousands of square feet of warehouse space with machines, accessories, part in stock for immediate delivery, and then that showroom floor. They don't work on commission, so you don't have to worry about being pressured. 0% financing, and best deals of the year are in December. So if you or someone that you know is into the woodworking, metalworking, you want to stop by, and they still carry the good old-fashioned catalog. So even if you don't have a lot of time, maybe you're on your lunch break, you just swing on in there, grab one of those puppies, and you take them home. Grizzly Industrial in Springfield. We've been talking a lot the last couple of weeks about Santa's Angels, and I know a lot of you are very familiar. In fact, we've got some of the gifts that are rolling in. A couple of the tree locations already have been adopted out. We are trying to get updates on some of the others, but we always like to at least once a season talk a little more in depth about the actual impact and what it means, because I know there is to a degree a disconnect. Those of you who are so generous with your time and your dollars to go out and do that, and then you drop it off and it's like, well, okay, done until next year. And so just the nature of the situation, you don't get that connection with the child that you have made that connection with. They get a bit of a connection, but oftentimes you don't. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that coming up here in just a couple of moments. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today it'll be mostly sunny with a high near 42. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 27. For your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 38. And on Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 52.
KSGF.com, your chance to win before you can buy. Tickets to see Styx with special guest Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon live at Thunder Ridge Nature Arena Saturday, June 7th. Those tickets go on sale this Friday at 10 a.m. But again, your chance to win before you can buy at KSGF.com. Santa's Angels has been underway for a couple of weeks now. Leading up through last week, we had so much going on. This is really the first time that we have, or this week, been able to give it the warranted attention. And the name of the organization has over time evolved, but the cause is the same. And Trudy Smith is with us, KVC.
KVC.
And you were KVC last season, right?
Yes. We merged with KVC Missouri in April of last year.
What does KVC stand for?
Knowledge, Vision, Connection.
Okay.
Originally, it stood for the Kaw Valley Center. That's where KVC originated. And as they got bigger and bigger, and in the Kansas City area, KVC is recognized very widely. But down here, we've changed our name so many times, we're still trying to catch up.
Well, you'll get there.
I will get there.
You'll get there.
We'll get there.
I've been here, well, it'll be in April, 15 years. And Santa's Angels was around when I came about.
Yes.
So it has been a very long time. And for as long as I've been here as well, we've involved partners in which we set up the trees, which are these beautiful, magnificent trees, if you haven't seen them.
The prettiest.
They're horrible. I tell myself that it's like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. Not that bad, but it symbolizes the simplicity of giving or something. I don't know. But we've got these little trees at our partner locations, and they all have the name of a child and an age, obviously just the first name, and then their wish list of sorts. That's something that Sarah goes and gathers that information and makes all those, and we do it specifically. So there's a bit of a connection. There are a lot of organizations that promote, hey, we just have a box, just drop off toys, and so they're able to really hit a mass number of kids, which is fantastic. And what we do is it's less volume, but we recognize that a lot of times the kids don't necessarily have somebody in their lives that buy them present. And so that's
correct.
Being a gift itself is something that we try to do. It takes a little more time and effort, but I think it's worth it. And so if you wouldn't mind, just tell the people a little bit about, I guess, what you see, what the organization does, and how it is that the people who are listening now that participate or thinking about participating in Santa's Angels, what that means.
Okay. Well, right now, Nick, we have we became a psychiatric residential treatment facility last year. And so with that, the kids have more severe issues and behaviors. So what we try to do is just create a safe place for them. These kids have been running in a fight or flight mode for so long, that's how they've survived. And we try to make them feel safe. We want them to have fun. We want them to play. We want them to be kids. We had a little girl not so very long ago admitted, and she'd been in several other placements. And when she got to her cottage, she looked up at her counselor. Well, let me back up. There was a Barbie dream house in the middle of the floor. And when she saw that, she stopped dead in her tracks, and she looked up at her counselor, and she asked, "You mean I get to play here?" And in other programs she'd been here in, they had restricted play as a form of punishment. And we want the kids to play. Yeah. We want them to play.
Well, and you use the term safe space. I want to recalibrate that, because that is a term that has been really utilized to describe what oftentimes is seen as spoiled kids who need their feelings protected. And, well, this is a safe space over here with this and that. That's not what we're talking about here.
Not.
This is real, true, legitimate need to protect.
Exactly. Our kids have been traumatized. They've suffered abuse and neglect. And I have always said, ever since I first came to the legacy agency, the Springfield Children's Home, back in 1981, that our kids do have chips on their shoulders.
Sure.
But they've they have every right to have those chips, but they can't go through their whole life carrying those chips on their shoulders. We've got to help them see that they can move past that. And we have so many kids that have moved past that and are successful now. And I love it when they come back and say, hi. Thanks, by the way.
Well, and we've received communication from that are adults now, some that were the recipients of Santa's Angels.
Yes. Yes.
And they talk about the meaning of it. Maybe you can talk with everyone about that a bit.
Well,
what that's like. And
some of these kids have never had a Christmas before. They don't know how to celebrate Christmas. And so that goes back into one of our core values is teaching them fun and teaching them how to play. Let's go play basketball. Let's go feed the chickens. We used to have chickens on campus for a long time. But these kids, years ago, I took a couple of sisters home to my mom's house in Bolivar for Thanksgiving. And my grandmother overcooked and overfed, as she always did. And I was worried the kids would be bored,
Sure.
Grandma's house in Bolivar.
You're right.
Years later, she came back with her husband and her 2 kids. And I was up in the front office, and her husband was staying up front to keep the kids so that his wife could go tour and see other people that she remembered. And he said, "So you're Trudy?" And I said, "Yes, I'm Trudy." And he said, "My wife tells me that she wouldn't know how to do Thanksgiving if you hadn't taken her to your mom's home that one time." And I was so worried about the girls being bored,
Right.
but that's creating memories. That's what the holidays are all about, creating happy memories. And that's what we want to do for these kids so they can carry that on.
I think a lot of times there's this, I guess, maybe a stereotype, particularly when they come to facilities that involves a large number of kids that, lost cause, the vast majority of them, that this is more just about finding something to do with them. We don't know where else to put them than it is actually helping get them on the right track. But
Right.
you do get to see those successes.
Yes. And while most people recognize our residential program because of our campus, we do far more out in the community. We work with other nonprofits to build a true continuum of care. Our emergency shelter can take large sibling groups. It's also the front door for our homeless youth programs. Kids can come to us through that. We have a number of programs for older kids to help them transition away from being in a facility to being on their own, plus foster care case management, recruitment, training. I mean, we're trying to prevent out-of-home placement. It's better to treat the whole family than to just to treat the identified patient. And usually that's the kid. But we have, my gosh, we've got kids that are now CEOs of their own companies. And that makes me feel so good.
Well,
Can I say something?
please.
You were talking earlier about the connection that your Santa's Angels don't have with the kid directly. And so one of the things I've been encouraging people to do is write a little note on their gift, just anything, words of encouragement. I got a call from one of our board members last week, and she said, "Trudy, I know that all the gifts are supposed to be new, but my adoptee likes Taylor Swift, and she said I was going to get her some new friendship bracelets, but I'd really like to give her one of mine that I got at a Taylor Swift concert." And I said, "Well, just write a little note on that. That would thrill her to death." And I wish I could be there on Christmas morning when she reads that note, because I bet it'll be phenomenal.
Well, and I think for people who have been fortunate enough to have the traditional even if you have family you fight with,
Oh, yeah. That's
still-
inevitable.
Yeah, and I'm pretty lucky. I mean, my family, we all get along, and so I just been very, very fortunate in that way. But because it's commonplace for us to have people in our lives that we buy gifts for and that buy gifts for us, that we don't recognize what it's like to not feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it can be difficult to understand how could a child
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't know me, how
Mm-hmm.
can this be meaningful to this individual? Just the fact that,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I picked this 12-year-old
Mm-hmm.
out specifically. And so I think there's just an inability because of the lives that so many of us have been
Mm-hmm.
able to live to really understand that
Mm-hmm.
impact.
Well, it may not be as fulfilling on the donor side, but I can tell you on the recipient side, it means a lot to the kids. Um, we had a former resident contact me a couple of years ago, and well, his wife contacted me, and they were going to do a drive, I want to say in Monette for us. And she said that her husband had told her at Christmas at KVC was phenomenal, and he wanted to do something through his business to help the kids that are here now, and they did. I mean, I think that's just
Yeah.
phenomenal. That is so
Well,
great to see that he wants to pay it forward.
yeah. Well, and it's good to hear those stories too, because again, I think there's this stereotype that
Mm-hmm.
this is just
Mm-hmm.
this is a place to keep kids
Yeah.
because there's nowhere else for them to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they're 18, they're kicked out and then
Mm-hmm.
they're on the streets. And so hearing that it does, because I know particularly with our listeners, there's this desire to help if
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be meaningful.
Exactly.
And you see that.
I
You get
do.
to see that.
I'm lucky. I get to see
Yeah.
that every day, and it's just it is a blessing to work there, and I've been there forever.
You know, it's real interesting to hear you say that because in my mind, I think to myself, gosh, what an emotionally draining
Mm.
job. And so I'm sure it is, but
Mm-hmm.
that you see it as a
Mm-hmm.
blessing, I think that says a lot.
Yep, it does, and it can be emotional, especially for those frontline workers.
Well, and you mentioned what you called it the
Emergency shelter.
emergency shelter, and so I imagine that is sort of immediate need
Absolutely.
situation, and that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Santa's Angels, but I just like for people to have an understanding of what it is that you all do
Okay.
there.
Emergency shelter. We opened it in 2001. Um, basically because sibling groups were being taken into foster care and getting split up.
Mhm.
And sometimes they'd get lost in the system. I mean, we've read those stories. And so we wanted a place for where the siblings could stay together
Yeah.
until we could find a place that would take them all together. In many cases with sibling groups, sorry, um, the older sibling is the parental figure.
Right.
And so to split them up, I mean, that's just inhumane. We're not going to do that. Now, as time has gone on, KVC is really good about foster care recruitment, training, and retention. And so the need for those large sibling group families has kind of dwindled. Not a lot, not completely gone, but it's not as great as it was back in 2001. So that's when we started working with homeless youth. We reach out, we go where they are. We give out packets with stuff, we give food, we give passes. Um, and in the meantime, we're trying to recruit them into our program. You know, they may be couch surfing, they may be living in a car with mom and dad, single parent family. Mom may be in Harmony House, and she's got 3 kids that have nowhere to go. Harmony House doesn't have a family room. So there's these kids. They can come to us and stay with us. We facilitate visits back and forth. Who was I talking to the other day about that family bond that is there that will never break. And I think I keep talking about the old days, but I can remember the old days better than I can remember yesterday. We were the Springfield Children's Home. We had 30 kids. And we had one little girl she'd lost her mom about a year ago. She'd been with us about a year. And dad was a chronic alcoholic, and he missed many visits. And our treatment coordinator convinced him to relinquish his parental rights so we could get the little girl adopted. And the day that he did that, he came into the office and signed the papers with our treatment coordinator. And she brought him out into the front office and said, "Wait here, I'm going to go get your daughter. You need to tell her bye." And so she came up to the front office and she was so excited to see her dad. Oh, she was so happy. And he hugged her, of course, and she sat on his lap and he said, "Baby, you're going to get a new family. You're going to get a brand new mom and dad. You may even get brothers and sisters, but I just can't be your dad anymore. You deserve better." And he stood up and walked out the front door, and his little girl sat there for just a moment, and then she went up to the glass door. It's full glass door. And she pressed her face against the glass, and I walked around to try to comfort her, because she was crying. And as soon as I got to her, I put my hand on her shoulder, and she burst out the front door, and she ran screaming down the sidewalk, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Take me with you. I love you. Take me with you." And he turned around and knelt down and hugged her for what seemed like hours as I'm watching all this unfold. And thinking, we should have tried harder to keep him in her life. They love each other. If there's love, there's hope. And if there's a bond, there's hope. Maybe she still would have been adopted, but maybe Dad could have had some contact with her, which would have made the transition so much easier. And we don't do that now. That's the absolute last option for our kids, is parental relinquishment. And sometime it is necessary.
We're talking with Trudy Smith, KVC, the organization that we do Santa's Angels with. The last thing I'd like you to talk about is, I know a lot of listeners are going to go and they're going to see some of these kids are older.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times when you're buying for kids, the heartstrings are more for that age, or if you have grandkid, you're thinking about that. But the way I look at it is, you can have somebody that's a teenager and imagine going that whole life and never having, because you sort of, I don't know, you probably see it differently and given up a bit, and then you have, I don't know, you call it transitional. You sort of prepare them so they're not just out there.
We don't just kick them out at 18.
And
Exactly.
so if you could talk a little bit, because it's so easy again with the older kids to overlook them, or to be like, well, what do they need somebody to buy them a gift for?
Right. As you mentioned earlier, a lot of places, and previously, even at KVC, it was a place to hold kids,
Right.
like you said, keep them safe, provide treatment. But we, as you said, we do have these kids. They turn 18 and they don't have anybody, and so we actually will start working with those kids when they turn 17. And we have several duplexes close to campus, and the kids are nearby so that their case managers can visit, and we can make sure that they're going to work or going to school or doing what they're supposed to be doing. But yet it's far different from living in a cottage with 8 other kids.
Sure.
So that's been very successful. We teach them the basics in transitional living, and they can stay with us till they're 22 in that particular program. And it's just been so beneficial for those kids who have nobody. We had one young woman, they're all kids to me, but one young woman who we had her in an apartment, and she had never had control over the thermostat. She cranked the thermostat down to 60, blew out all the other units in the apartment complex. And, we didn't teach her how to use it. That's something we added to our list.
But you those very simple things
Exactly.
that's so foreign to imagine.
Yes.
An adult by age having no concept how to use something like that.
I know.
Mm.
I know. It's crazy. And we see kids that come in there 8, 9, 10 years old. They can't even read, can't even write their own name. So, there's a lot of work to do. Still, I wish we could run ourselves out of business. I always say that. But for now, our community still needs us, and we'll be there.
Now, there have been years past that you needed, in addition to what we do with Santa's Angels, wrapping paper and tape. But then others like, no, we don't need any more. We have plenty. Where are you now with that?
We
What?
could use some wrapping paper
Okay.
this year.
Okay. Do you need tape as well, and even like scissors for? Because you all, and for people that don't know, you all do the wrapping.
Yes, we do.
So wrapping paper,
Everything
Okay.
you need: wrapping paper, tape,
ribbons, maybe.
scissor,
Okay.
ribbons,
Okay.
gift tags.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Good. Good.
My mother used the Sharpie route direct on the package.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have ribbons and bows.
Sarah, is there anything you wanted to ask or add that I'm missing here?
I don't think so. So our final date to drop off presents, you will drop them off here at the KFGF studio. We are located at 2330 West Grand Street in Springfield. Our office is open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. That final deadline to drop off presents is Tuesday, December 17th.
Okay.
So please make sure to get those presents in. I did also call A1 in Republic. They do have 7 ornaments left on the tree. I'm not sure about Pinnaker yet. I think they opened
Republic location.
Yes, correct. They opened at 8:30, so I will be calling them as soon as we are done with the segment.
And thank you all for doing this. Thank you,
pleasure.
We
and
enjoy
thank
it.
your partners. You two are great, and your partners are even better.
99% of the actual work Sarah does.
Well, I can say that.
And I'm not saying that to try to sound anything other than it's just the truth. She arranges everything, organizes everything. All I do is talk about it, which is what I'm doing anyway. So
That's like Carrie. Carrie does everything. Sarah, she does 99% of the work. I just talk about it.
see, we got the easy gig.
We
No,
do. We've got the easy.
and then Crown Power over there, they have a tree also. All right, so we'll get everyone updated on that. It's always great to see you. Thank you so much for sharing with us and allowing people who are listening, to share. We got one text in saying, as an individual who came from this type of background, I so appreciate the organization. So yeah, it does. It means a lot. Thank you so much, and Merry Christmas.
Christmas.
Trudy Smith, KBC, Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. All right, ran a little long, appropriately so. Have weather in just a moment. Right now, the latest traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 42. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 27. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 38. And on Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 52.
I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs. Things are changing. The economy's expected to get better. People are feeling more confident about things. How will that affect interest rates? Will it at all? Is the inauguration of Trump going to have an impact? Interest rates when it comes to home buying? These are all questions that are completely valid questions, and you could probably find 1,000 different answers. But there's one go-to place I recommend, and that's the characters and their team at iwantagreathomeloan.com. So whether it's a refinancing question or you think, you know what, I think it is time to buy that new home that we've been dreaming about. Or perhaps you don't need as many bedrooms as you did once upon a time because the kids are out and you don't need to upkeep such a large home. Whatever the reason being, that's step one of finding out what it is that financially is available to you. It starts at iwantagreathomeloan.com because you do. All right, so Crown Power, you said that tree is out?
That is correct. And
Green-
I will call Pinnaker here in
Okay.
just a second.
In Greene County Freight, that tree is out.
Yes.
Anchor Tactical Supply, that tree is out. There were 7 kids left on the A1 Custom Car Care tree in Republic on 60. And then Pinnaker. I suspect Pinnaker probably has more because that is a new partner with us in this. And that always happens. Anytime there is a new partner, they tend to have the most kids left over because we're creatures of habit. And so those of you who may pick up your kid adoption at Greene County Freight 1 year, you're going to do that every year. And so anytime there is a new location like Corwin in Republic on Highway 60 there, it's a pretty safe bet that that's going to be your go-to place if you're a little late to the game in adopting a kid. And so right now, Highway 60 in Republic is the place to adopt these kids. And like I said, all of the instruction is on the back. When I took the tree over there before Thanksgiving, and when I took it and set it up, it was talking about Pinnaker. I think Pinnaker. If I said, we've been talking about a number of different auto dealers here in the last couple of days, so in my mind I may be getting confused, but forgive me if that's the case. So that Pinnaker location, there's like a pre-owned vehicle building and then a new owned vehicle building right inside the doors to the right, and then to the right of that there's sort of a glassed-in corner, windowed corner. That's where I had set that tree up. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't necessarily find a better place for it that they thought would be more accommodating for folks to come in. But if that is where you happen to, first go in, that is where I had left it. So, a big thank you again to Pinnaker and of Republic there, and then A1 Custom Car Care, those 2 final locations. And if you need any further details or questions about it, please feel free to reach out to us. And we'll get you whatever information it is that you need. Well, some relatively positive news for Trump and some of these nominations he's made. The formal confirmation process, of course, doesn't begin until Trump is sworn in. But these different nominees being announced, and then you get sort of public reaction. You get reaction from some of the individuals that are going to be responsible for approving or disapproving. Pete Hegseth has been the biggest target right now of the left. The Matt Gaetz situation was one that they saw as a trophy. They've moved on to Hegseth. And one of the apparent Republican holdup was Senator Joni Ernst, which was getting a great deal of negative publicity because there were reports that she was trying to sabotage this so she could get the position for herself. She has since suggested she was going to be supportive of him. though it does seem as if in the language here there's a little bit of wiggle room. She said, among other things, I support Pete through this process. I look forward to a fair hearing based on truth, not anonymous sources. Now, some people will interpret this as she's going to support him, but I've learned to be very specific in recognition of words and terminology. And what I see her saying here is that she supports him through the process. That's different than supporting him in finality. Word is that increasingly the media and the left and the establishment are beginning to see Hegseth as somebody that is going to get approved, and so now they're moving their target over to Tulsi Gabbard. And, of course, their goal is to deny Trump as many of the real change agents, if you will, from being approved. There's obviously going to be a varying degree of approval that comes from the establishment, but it's very clear those individuals that are not establishment individuals, and those are going to be the individuals that they fight hardest against, and they try to get those trophies on their wall. But this is good movement for Trump and his nominee for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. All right, so Pinnagar has 7 kids left. So A1 and
Yes.
Pinnagar, both in Republic on Highway 60, have 7 kids left. That'd be awesome if we got those adopted out today.
That would be so nice.
So if you commute or heck, just even stop on in Republic. If you haven't been in Republic for a while, there are a lot of great places there.
It is expanded for sure, because I don't go through there terribly often anymore, but it's just massive now.
We stopped at not one of the newer places, but one of the historic places
Yes.
on Friday at
Mhm.
Ease, which is one of my favorite go-tos.
It was
And-
delicious.
Yeah, and so I actually have a connection to that place. One of my very best friends from high school. There was a group of us that just thick as thieves, hung out all the time, and that's his uncle who owns
Oh,
that
no
place. Yeah,
kidding.
so kind of family family.
Small world.
Yes, but good, very good people over there, if you know what I mean. So if you've never stopped by Ease on 60 there in Republic, definitely. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like the old school place that after the football game, the entire town goes to, the
Yeah.
high school football game, you
Mhm.
know, with the burgers, and they've used the same equipment that just gives it that flavor that can't be replicated, but you can get virtually anything. They've got the milkshakes and the burgers. You want a taco or a salad or a burrito or a fish sandwich, whatever it is, odds are they have it on the menu over there. And so it's just one of my favorite go-to places. they arrested this guy that is believed to be the killer of the CEO. Did you hear? It was a former coworker of Donald Trump's.
I saw that.
Yeah, a McDonald's employee.
Mhm.
Yeah, so look at that. I mean, got two things on the resume there. Yeah, former coworker of Donald Trump, and also caught what is believed largely to be the murderer of this CEO. There's this, we continue to see this, what I think is a horrible snapshot of where a lot of people are in our culture, but celebrating the murder of this individual. These are the same people, by the way, that if this were an abortion doctor who had been targeted and killed, there would be an address from the White House. There would be nothing but stories about how evil and awful the pro-life community is. This would be painted in the light of Donald Trump appointing Supreme Court justices his first time around, and it would be to no end a lecture to the American people and demonizing the entire pro-life community. That's how it would be portrayed. But some of the same people who would wring their hands over a situation like that and use it to paint an entire pro-life community as being awful are celebrating, or at least somewhat sympathetic to the murder of this guy. Now, I've talked about this to some degree, and I get and understand the anger, particularly when it comes to insurance, when it's not confusing as hell. We hear the horrible stories, right? You hear the horrible stories about somebody that needs this life-saving procedure and it gets denied because it hasn't been approved for this or that. We don't hear the stories about the people who had $700,000 surgery and stay, but it was covered because of insurance. We don't hear those stories. It isn't to say that insurance companies are fantastic and wonderful and run by the best people in the world, but this idea, again, that we should just be celebrating the assassination of a CEO of a company because of the stereotype of insurance companies that deny claims. There's this other story, leaked video shows United Healthcare CEO saying insurer will continue practices that combat unnecessary care. Now, I got to be honest with you. My first thought was, well, yeah, I mean, shouldn't they? Because if they start covering unnecessary care, then that's going to cause costs to go up. And then it's going to become even more expensive than it already is. This story is being presented as if it is supposed to be a reflection on how these people haven't learned their lesson. In fact, the subsequent following headline, Whitty's comment comes after United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was killed last week. Well, what does that have to do with it? It's like, I'm not really I'm not sure that people understand exactly how all of this is supposed to work. And I'm not claiming that it works perfectly, particularly once government decided to get involved and start mandating that this get covered and mandating that that get covered, which of course increase the costs. But it's as if these companies are these magical places in which no one ever gets denied anything. Everything that anyone ever could want or need, it automatically, without any cost or without any sort of review or anything at all, gets approved. And I fully recognize that there are times in which there are procedures, or they'll approve one but not another that doesn't make any sense because one actually is safer. And I know all of these things. I get it. talking about a lot of bureaucracy, talking about a lot of aspects of this that can be extremely problematic when it comes to what is right and just and fair. But we tend to go to the other extreme where there should never be a single person that doesn't get what they want. And if that isn't the reality, then, well, I guess the person who's in charge of the company should be killed. Can we finally note that this is also not the killing, but the discussion about the problems with our healthcare system? Can we finally acknowledge Obamacare did not work and do what it said it was going to do? For a government-run program that we were all told was going to make healthcare cheap and free, and you were going to be able to get in to see your doctor even faster, and when you go into an emergency room, it's going to be like a ghost town, and you'll never have to worry about losing your insurance or your doctor. It's going to be the most wonderful thing ever. Your premiums were going to go down. Your access was going to go up. Can we admit that that didn't happen? It'd be nice if just one person who promoted Obamacare as some sort of government-run program that was going to make things better, if just one would say, sorry, I was extremely wrong. But this is government after all.